This is chapter 8 from White Noise by DeLillio. This is on page 31 if you're following along. My struggle with the German tongue began in mid-October and lasted nearly the full academic year. As the most prominent figure in Hitler's studies in North America, I had long tried to conceal the fact that I did not know German. I could not speak or read it, could not understand the spoken word or begin to put the simplest sentence on paper. The least of my Hitler colleagues knew some German. Others were either fluent in the language or reasonably conversationate. No one could major in Hitler studies at the college on the hill without a minimum of 1 year of German. I was living, in short, on the edge of a landscape of vast shame. The German tongue, fleshly warped, spit spraying, pulpish, and cruel. One evening had to confront it. Wasn't Hitler's own struggle to express himself in German the critical subtext of his massive ranting autobiography, dedicated in a fortress prison in the Bavarian hills? Grammar and syntax, the man may have felt himself in prison in more ways than one. I had made several attempts to learn German, serious probes into organs, structures, roots. I sensed the deathly power of the language. I wanted to speak it well, use it as a charm, a protective device. The more I shrank from the learning actual words, rules, and pronunciation, the more important it seemed that I go forward. That we are reluctant to touch often seems the very fabric of our salvations. But the basic sounds defeated me, the hoarse sputtering, northernness of the words and syllables, the command delivery. Something happened between the back of my tongue and the roof of my mouth that made a mockery of my attempts to sound German words. I was determined to try again, because I had achieved high professional standing, because my lectures were well attended and my articles printed in the major journals, because I wore an academic gown and dark glasses day and night whenever I was on campus, because I carried 230 pounds on a 6'3" frame and had big hands and feet. I knew my German lessons would have to be a secret. I contacted a man not affiliated with the college, someone Murray J. Skinner had told me about. They were fellow boarders in the green shingled house on Middlebrook. The man was in his 50s, a slight shuffle in his walk. He had thinning hair, a bland face, and wore his shirt sleeves rolled up to his forearms, revealing thermal underwear beneath. His complexion was a tone of what I want to call flesh-colored. Howard Dunlop was his name. He was a former chiropractor, but didn't offer a reason why he was no longer active, and didn't say he'd learned German, or why something in his manner kept me from asking. We sat in his dark, crowded room at the boarding house. An iron board stood unfolded at the window. There were chipped enamel spots of trays of utensils set on the drawer. The furniture was vague, fondling. At the borders of the room there were elemental things, an exposed radiator, an army blanket cot. Dunlop sat at the edge of the straight chair, initiating generalities of grammar. When he switched from English to German, it was as though a cord had been twisted in his larynx. An abrupt emotion entered his voice, a scrape and a gargle that sounded like the string of some beast ambition. He gaped at me and gestured. He croaked. He verged on strangulation. Sounds came spewing from the base of his tongue, harsh noises, damp with passion. He was only demonstrating certain basic pronunciation patterns. The transformation in his face and voice made me think he was making a passage between levels of being. I sat there taking notes. The hour went quickly. Dunlop managed a scant shrug when I asked him not to discuss the lesson with anyone. It occurred to me that he was the man Murray had described in this summary of fellow boarders as the one who never comes out of his room. I stopped at Murray's room and asked him to come home with me for dinner. He put down his copy of American Transvet and slipped into his corduroy jacket. We stopped on the porch long enough for Murray to tell the landlord, who was sitting there, about a dripping faucet in the second-floor bathroom. The landlord was a large, florid man of such robust and blustering health that he seemed to be having a heart attack even as we looked on. "He'll get around to fixing it," Murray said, as we set out, foot in the direction of Elm. He fixes everything eventually. He's very good with all those little tools and fixtures and devices that people in cities never know the names of. The names of those things are only known in outlying communities, small towns, and rural areas. Too bad he's such a... How do you know he's a... People who can fix things are usually... What do you mean? I think of all the people who've never come to your house to fix things. They were all... weren't they? I don't know. They drove panel trucks, didn't they? With an extension ladder on the roof and some kind of plastic charm dangling from the rearview mirror. I didn't know, Murray. It's obvious, he said. He asked me why I'd chosen this year in particular to learn German, after so many years of sipping past the radar. I told him there was a Hitler conference scheduled for the next 2 springs at the college on the hill. 3 days of lectures, workshops, and panels. Hitler scholar from 17 states and 9 foreign countries, actual Germans, would be in attendance. At home, Denise placed a moist bag of garbage in the kitchen compactor. She started up the machine. The ram stoked downward with a dreadful wrenching sound full of eerie fleeing children. Children walked in and out of the kitchen. Water dripped in the sink. The washing machine heaved in the entranceway. Murray seemed engrossed in identical mesh. Whining metal, exploding bottles, plastic smashed flat. Denise listened carefully, making sure the mangled din contaminated the correct sonic element, which meant the machine was operating properly. Heinrich said to someone on the phone, "Animals commit incest all the time, so how natural can it be?" Babette came in front of her outfit, soaked through. Murray walked across into the kitchen to shake her hand. She fell into a chair, scanned the room for Wilder, and watched Denise make a mental comparison between her mother's running clothes and the wet bag she dumped into the compactor. I could see it in her eyes, a sardonic connection. It was these secondary levels of life, these extensory flashes and floating nuances of being, these pockets of wrapping forming unexpectedly, that made me believe we were a magic act, adults and children together, sharing accountable things. "We have to boil our water," Psyche said. "Why?" "It said on the radio." They're always saying boil our water," Babette said. "It's the new things like turn your wheel in the direction of the skid. Here comes Wilder now. I guess we can eat." The small child moved in a swaying gait, the great head wagging. His mother made faces of delight, happy and outlandish masks, watching him approach. "Neutrogena goes right through the earth," Heinrich said into the telephone. Yes, said Babette.